Hi guys, so this week we are going over Unit 9, and Unit 9 is the unit about families as partners in developing individualized education programs. There's 4 key things I'm going to talk about in this video. 1, I will explain the purpose of transition planning and the stages at which transition planning is required under IDEA. 2, I will be describing IDEA's intentions regarding family professional partnerships and why the fulfillment of trusting partnerships often falls short of the ideal. 3rd, I will discuss the purpose of related services and describe how these services are determined, designed, and ultimately provided to the student. And lastly, I will discuss the way in which professionals can help translate student priorities into written goals and objectives. So to start, I will talk about transition planning. Transition planning occurs multiple times during the student's education. They're pretty much put into place because IDEA wants to ease the difficulties of transition and assure effective services in the receiving service system. Many students will go through transition planning between the ages of pre-K and kindergarten, from elementary school to middle school to high school, and some students even need transition plans from year to year because of the big changes that happen. IDEA requires that a transition plan be in effect for the first school year that the child, will be 16 years old. This plan must consider what the student's post-secondary plans are. It's around this time that as a teacher, you're supposed to encourage the student to start thinking of life beyond high school, what they want to do when they grow up, that sort of thing. And you take their answers and you kind of formulate small steps for them to get there. And those small steps turn into goals. And then you try to figure out what steps need to be taken to reach those small goals in order to get them to the big goal. Once a child reaches the age of majority, the decision-making role changes hands between the parents and the student, as long as the student is competent to make these decisions. Another IDEA-required transition plan is for children receiving early intervention services. Early intervention services are for children, not quite students yet, but children under the age of 3. Transition plans are used to reduce the uncertainties of big changes from one stage to another and to ensure that the child is ready for the next step. So, in a roundabout way, these services are to make sure the student's ready for, the 3 or under year old is ready to start to be a student, is ready to start kindergarten, and everything's put in place, goals are put in place and being met, etc., etc. The next big part of this unit was what were IDEA's intentions regarding family professional partnerships and why the fulfillment of trusting partnerships often falls short of the ideal. It's really important, really important that families and parents have a good partnership. When families learn that their child has a disability, it can be life-altering. It makes them question every normal thing they had probably imagined for themselves and their family and their child. This could be a big adjustment for a lot of families, and it doesn't just affect the child, it affects the siblings, it affects the parents, it affects everyone involved. Some parents deal with it differently than others. Some parents can be bitter, some parents do the best with it that they can, but it's the responsibility of the teacher, I think, to make sure that each family is receiving the accommodations that they need. And really, I think it's really important for the teacher to be understanding and try to put yourself in their shoes and be empathetic and kind of see how you would feel and the things that you would need from your child's special education student or special education teacher. Some early childhood teachers feel overwhelmed and unprepared when they have a child with special needs in their classroom, but it's really important that you learn about the special education process so you can best support these families. I've said it a million times, you may be the only source of information for these families, so it's important that you're educated and you can help them because you would want someone to help you. Listening to families is key in working with them as partners and supporting the learning and development of their child with special needs. It's exceedingly important that you make the parents feel like you value their opinions, and not just feel like you value their opinions, but you should value their opinions. They know this child better than anyone else typically. Both the IFSP and the IEP state the goals and objectives for child's development and educational process. This plan program is implemented for a reason. It specifies who delivers services, how the child's progress is assessed, and if any classroom placements are needed. Families should be a part of the IFSP and IEP planning process. Educators need to be sure to make this happen. It's really important that they're a part of that process. There's a lot of different strategies that I've read about that can help when you're working with children with disabilities. One of the the most important strategies and most helpful is understanding the family's life. That means respecting the extra work it takes for the families to care for and educate a child with special needs. Another strategy is learn about the disability. Be educated. Like, you are the biggest advocate for this child and for their parents, and it's important that you know what you're talking about so you can help. That's your job, is to help this child. And in turn, you can really help their families, and not just help their educational experience, but help their home life. It's really important to communicate frequently with families. It's super important that you stay in contact and everyone's keeping everyone up to date. Don't leave room for confusion. Don't leave room for doubt or someone being left out of the loop, because no one would appreciate that. In your communications as an educator, it's important to include positive comments about the child's success and express your respect for the parents' efforts in helping the child develop as fully as possible. I think it's really important to not be negative. When the child takes a step and achieves something, make sure you let the parents know, and make sure you be excited and happy for that child, and make sure you do let the parents know that you can appreciate what they're doing and you can see the positive effect on the child. It would be naive to think there will never be a challenging situation throughout your experience as a special education teacher. There's bound to be at least one challenging family, one challenging situation, and it's important that you just handle each situation with grace and empathy, and you can only do the best that you can do. Next, we talk about related services. Related services are a part of the IEP, and it kind of consists of like supplementary aids. These are services provided to the child or on behalf of the child, and they start with evaluation, and the evaluation kind of determines what related services a student needs. Related services are then dissected, and you figure out who's going to provide what service, I guess. And obviously parents don't typically pay for the related services and all that kind of stuff. Okay, so IDEA's exact words on related services. A statement of special education and related services and supplementary aids and services based on peer-reviewed research to extent practicable to be provided to the child or on behalf of the child, and a statement of the program modifications or supports for school personnel that will be provided to enable the child to 1. Advance appropriately towards attaining the annual goals, 2. To be involved in and make progress in general education curriculum in accordance with paragraph A1 of this section, and to participate in extracurricular and other non-academic activities, and 3. To be educated and participate with other children with disabilities and non-disabled children in the activities described. So that's actually out of IDEA's full requirements. So in brief, related services help children with disabilities benefit from their special education by providing extra help and support in needed areas, such as speaking, moving, really anything. So this is where you see speech pathology, physical therapy, orientation and mobility services, recreation including therapeutic recreation, social work services, school health services, counseling, psychological services, interpreting services. If you have a child that's first language is Spanish, they would be given interpreting services to kind of help them with that process. The whole process obviously begins with evaluation. The student's assessed, and through that assessment, they kind of see what and if any related services are needed. Once it's decided what is needed, then it's decided when the service will begin, how often it will be provided, and for what amount of time, and where it will be provided. The IEP is a written commitment for the delivery of services to meet a student's educational needs. A school district must ensure that all of the related services specified in the IEP, including the amount, are provided to the student. Related services personnel on the IEP team. Anyone who is providing a related service to the student is also a part of the IEP team. It's a big team effort to get the student where they need to go, so typically it's important that they are there and communicate with everyone else as well. Parents do not pay for the related services their child receives, and yes, that is related services. Okay, lastly, I will talk about the ways in which professionals can help translate student priorities into written goals and objectives. It's really important that everything's kind of broken down into smaller steps. There should be a big goal, and then there should be a million little goals in order to get to the big goal. The ways that professionals can help translate priorities into written goals is to kind of listen to the student, actually. So let's say you have a student who's 16 and you're talking about their transition out of high school and into the real world. A lot of the times these students may not be considering post-secondary education. The biggest goal might be going grocery shopping by themselves, or what it takes to do dishes, more lifestyle skills. So these would be broken down into smaller goals. So maybe one goal is to be able to make grilled cheese, be able to cook small meals. That could be a smaller goal in order to obtain the big goal. So it's that's really important, and it's important because when you split it up into smaller steps and smaller goals, it doesn't seem so unachievable. And each small step is a encouraging situation, and it's a positive thing, and maybe that's the push they need to get to the next small step. So that's really important as well. I'm thinking that's it for this week. Thanks, guys.